Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sandra Turner, host and founder of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have an amazing guest, Mr. Robert Brus. Welcome, Robert. How are you?
G'day, Andrew. I'm great, mate. It's great to be here. How are you doing yourself?
Very, very good. And I know you're looking very, very on brand over there, by the way. And I can see a little flag in the background, which kind of gives away about where you are today. Where are you in the world today?
I'm in a place called Cronulla in the southern suburbs of Sydney, Australia. And I just got out of the water about, must have been 15 minutes ago. I've been spearfishing, went and caught myself some dinner. So it's beautiful winter sunshine here in Sydney today.
I'm going to start sobbing now.
I always got to rub it into the foreigners that do.
Here we go. It's going to be a fun episode, this, I think. Yeah. It's a bit like one of my friends, she's in my Florida Keys. And I go, what's that? What's that noise in the background? She says, I'm just got my feet in the water. I'm just sat by the water. I'm going, I don't want to swear on this podcast. Anyway, it's great
to do that to the Brits, right?
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, this is where we need to kind of move. It's where we need to migrate again, don't we? Like the Mayflower or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So great to see you again. It's been a few years since we obviously physically together when we met in London. So what gets you up in the morning? What's been going on in the Brus life and world?
Oh, well, as you know, and as your listeners and viewers would know, the world's changed radically with the pandemic and whatnot. And really, it hasn't affected me or my family all that much, other than my kids, of course, because they've been homeschooling, but they've all gone back to school now. So that's kind of cool and good. But gosh, my business is called Go All In. I run a podcast booking agency. I help people get booked onto other people's podcasts, and I help people launch their own shows as well. And I record a couple of times a week, got lots and lots of episodes out there. I meet incredible people, and I bounce out of bed every day because I just love what I do. My clients are my favorite people in the world because we take them on a personal development journey, teaching them how to podcast and how to put that together. And it's just fabulous to watch people grow and to see them evolve as hosts of their own show, and then to help them to be successful in that space as well, to help them to amplify their message and drive more traffic, drive more business, and ultimately create some revenue out of it as well. I really enjoy that. So I love what I do. I'm blessed where I live. I'm blessed in the location. The pandemic, as I say, hasn't really affected us all that much. Lockdown really doesn't matter when you're sort of 50 meters from the beach and you can go and catch a dinner whenever you like.
So whereabouts is that in relation? I mean, obviously, I need to get agenda up on my geography. Obviously, you are on another island. Obviously, I'm in the UK and just in London. So obviously, we're both on islands, but slightly different islands, slightly different weather as well. It always rains in London, and it's slightly better in Australia. So whereabouts are you in relation to like Sydney and Melbourne, that kind of thing, or is it down that kind of area of it, or is it on the side?
So I'm in Sydney. You would say it's in Sydney, and it's about 30 kilometres south of Sydney. It's kind of the last suburb before you go into the national park. So if you've ever been, as you drive south, you bump into the national park, and we're on the very southern end of it there, like that. So it's just an absolutely beautiful spot. Where I live, the beach is probably 150 meters from my front door. I walk literally across the footpath and go spearfishing or swimming out there whenever I like. And around the other side, there's a river and an estuary called Port Hacking. You can go out there in a boat, and it's just the quintessential outdoor Australian lifestyle that you imagine, which is exactly what it is. And I love where I live. It's an absolute blessing to live here. And the wildlife here is incredible. We're about to kick off the whale watching season as all the whales migrate north. And I can sometimes look out the window and see whales going past and dolphins. I was getting pinged in the water by a sonar the other day.
Do they wave? Do they wave when you go past? I hope they're all branded up with all in t-shirts on.
Funny enough, I've seen them stop like right out the front of where we are. Is probably, I don't know, about 300 meters away in the water, and they stop, like a mum and a baby whale, like humpbacks, and they do wave. They kind of flounder there.
they go on the side and put their arm up, or put the fin up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive to see when you see them just like right out the front of your window like that. It's just absolutely blessed to be able to live in an environment like that.
I mean, obviously Australia's been, with the kind of the fires and stuff like that. I mean, because you said you're near the national park, but it's obviously it's been pretty bad down there with all that. Is it what's happening now? Is it died down a bit? Have you been affected by that, or?
it
I mean, a
definitely
lot of
definitely
people have been
makes.
impacted by it. I mean, there's been some horrific.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's the worst in our history, in Australian
Mm,
history.
mm,
And if you get out of the major cities in Australia and you get into kind of rural parts of Australia, and particularly in the southern states, they're all surrounded by bush. It's just Australia is a really big place, but the only places you can really live are coastal, because when you go too
mm,
far inland, if you're on the east coast and you're heading west, it's just really dense scrub. And then on the other side of that scrub, it turns into the desert, of course. So wherever you go in rural New South Wales or Victoria or even southern Queensland, it's densely populated in bushland areas, and that's the reason that it affected so many people. It's
mm.
an absolute tragedy to see all that loss of life and property and whatnot. But luckily, we came through it and we got on the other side of it. And I think there's been some really significant lessons learned. I think that'll be the one and only time that it gets out of control like that, because the governments are very reactive here. They're not
Right.
very proactive, but they're reactive. So they reacted in a good way, but they reacted too late. And I think this fire season,
You're not alone like that. You're not alone.
yeah, I think it's
There
all
are
governments,
other.
right? All governments. Yeah,
Gotta love them. Gotta love them. But
yeah,
you're saying it's kind of died down now, or you've got through the worst of it. It's kind of people are trying to rebuild from here, I presume. Because so I saw a lot of a lot of houses and things like that, and people's property was destroyed. It was pretty horrendous, wasn't it?
oh, mate, it was absolutely devastating. That's really the only way to describe it.
Mm,
And it's crushing. It's crushing to see people lose their livelihoods,
mm,
and to lose their homes and their loved ones as well. It's very, very, very sad. And it has that sense of dread associated with it. You
mm,
don't want to turn on the TV and watch the news, but in some ways you kind of got to see what's
mm.
going on. And it's really bad, and the feeling of dread that's associated with it is not nice. So I'm really glad to be on the other side of all those bushfires. And then the pandemic happened, and gosh, that was a big giant beat up here in Australia, that it was going to be the worst of the worst. But luckily, our government anticipated it, and they were proactive in that sense, and pretty much stopped it before it started here.
Oh,
Um,
really? They've done that, have they? Right. Okay.
yeah, they've done a good job there. It's sort
Wait,
of
what severe lockdown and stuff like that was it? Or
not so much the lockdowns, but just they closed the borders really quickly. And that was
right?
the best thing that they could have done, was to stop
Yeah.
all the flights. Sydney
Mm,
Airport, as an example, has something like 35 flights from China every single day. And they were like,
wow.
that's all stopping
Wow.
immediately. So,
Mm,
the Chinese stopped the flying internally, domestically, but they let the international flights go on. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And our government was one of the first to stop that. And I think that kind of set us up for success. And then, of course, they reacted, and everyone stopped working, and all of this happened. And they've pulled out all the stops. They're paying small businesses. There's a lot of welfare
right.
here in Australia helping us. But in some ways, a lot of that's worse than the pandemic, because the economic impact of that's going to last for the next 3 to 5 years. And that's really damaging. And it's a shame, but it's all countries in the world. But look, I think we're on the other side of it. We've got our R0 below zero here in Australia, which is a good thing. And things are starting to open back up, and life will go back to normal. But, consumer sentiment is low, but people want
Mm-mm.
to go and spend money. And I'm finding business is actually picking up, and it's ticking along. And I speak to a lot of people on a daily basis. And I was just talking to a fellow before who works in housing in Western Australia. He's a construction manager, and I asked him the same thing. How's business, mate? And he said it's
Mm.
busier than ever. He said
He says what, busier than ever?
busier than ever. He said
Wow.
in the last 5 years of business, last month was the busiest month that we've ever had. And you're like, what the hell?
What, and
And
that's
well,
new builds or home
yeah,
improvements or both?
house and land packages, people buying them.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so interesting times. It's the dichotomy of it all. Don't believe everything you're reading or seeing in the media. Maybe it's true. You got to talk to people to find out
Well,
what the
I
real.
mean, somebody sent me a meme last night. This thing about, this kind of stay at home. I don't know if you've seen the kind of some of the UK government, stay at home, no, go out, stay at home, no, go to work. It's kind of some comedians have been doing quite a good
Yeah.
job on that. But literally, there was a meme I got last night from one of my very good friends who works for a very famous tech company, technology company, and it said the media is the vaccine, or is it? It was something like
The media is the virus.
yeah, the media is the vaccine. Yeah, it was something like that basically, and it was. I mean, it's just. I think my what's happening in the last few months is my meme collection has just gone through the roof. And some of the videos and some of the images are just like legendary.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good that you're safe and well with your family, because it's been just. I mean, with my sons, it's just I'm talking to them, and they've got this context called sleep, eat, Xbox, repeat. And I go, there's too much Xbox in there. What about your homework? Oh no, we don't need to do that yet. So it's like, yeah, it's overrated, exactly. So one of the things I think my understanding is a bit of, because obviously we're on the G&T sessions. Now people think it's about gin and tonic. Now, obviously
which I happen to like, by the way.
Oh really? Oh right, that's good.
Yeah.
So go on then. Quick question then is what I know it's early in the morning. So it's about 6 a.m. in the morning over here in London. It's a bit later. What is it? It's 12 hours ahead, I'm thinking. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 3:20 in the afternoon here.
Oh, 3:20. That's not too bad then. You're okay for having a G&T then?
Yeah, I'm almost ready. Yeah.
One of my guests of the week came on with a rhubarb craft gin, literally on the episode, and was drinking it all the episodes. So that was quite funny. So what's your favourite gin then? Have you got a favourite or?
Gosh, I wouldn't say that I'm a connoisseur of that, but I will drink one if someone's drinking one. They make a lot of that stuff down in Tasmania. There's a lot of distilleries down for whiskey and for
craft distilleries, yeah.
Yeah, and I see that on all these like TV shows, and they do the beautiful drone footage of this incredible countryside, and I'm like, I got to go down there and get on the cans. That looks like good fun.
Get on the cans. What cans of gin?
Cans of gin, cans of anything, mate.
Actually, but there's a dynamic between. Isn't there a dynamic between the Tasmania and the mainland? Isn't the kind of there's a view of if you're in Sydney, it's a bit like the nuance between the English and the Irish, I suppose. Even though I'm half Irish and half English, so I can get away with it. But there's a few people I know in Tasmania. But what's your view on Tasmania then? It's kind of viewed as a kind of a slightly interesting place, isn't it? It's quite a beautiful place. Tasmania.
That's what? That's
yeah.
That
Okay.
It's a bit like that. Yeah.
Is it a bit like Big Island and Small Island? Yeah.
No, it's nothing like that. It's more Sydney-Melbourne rivalry actually than it is Tasmania. And Tasmania is just the place in the bottom of the country that everyone forgot about.
I actually have been, one of my friends, I was a best man, well, not best man, I was a groom for an Australian wedding. We came to Melbourne quite a few years ago. And basically, it's the only wedding I've actually wore a very big pink tie. So it was a light grey suit, tails, and a pink tie. And literally, I had to get it off as soon as possible because it felt a bit kind of, not a night out in Australia, in Melbourne, with a pink tie on. I'm kind of in trouble. Anyway.
And your tails.
Yeah, exactly. No comment. Yeah. Well, there's obviously the pack of us, obviously, the best man and all the grooms.
Yeah.
But the only thing I'd say about Melbourne is it's the only place I've actually queued at 4 a.m. in the morning to get into a nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've been obviously different cities around the world, but literally the queue was huge at 4 a.m. People I just said, what is going on here? It's unbelievable. Anyway.
Must be good.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. There we go. Boom, boom. So, I suppose back to your G. So we talked about G&T. Obviously, we have to have a virtual G&T in the future, or maybe one together. But your growth story, your backstory. I mean, obviously, you it sounds like you've got a digital business, which is really interesting. I'll come back to that in the future. But how did you get here? What was Robert Brus? How did you evolve to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a story of really three things. I was in the military for a long time when I left school. I was in the Navy first, and then I left that, and I was in the Army. So I was lucky enough to serve in two different services in the Australian Defence Force, which was absolutely fabulous. I had the best time. A lot of people have got a lot of bad things to say about their military career. I've got nothing bad at all to say. And I came out of it injury-free as well, luckily, as an infantry guy, which is unheard of, really. So I really enjoyed my career. I got to travel overseas. I went on operations a couple of times, did it for real. So I did everything that I sort of signed up to do. And at some point you learn to grow up and you decide that running around with a gun is pretty dangerous and kicking indoors and, playing real life Call of Duty is not as fun as it once was. It's a young man's game. And got a little bit tired of being told what to do and where to be and what to wear all the time. So I left. When I left the Army, I left with two of my mates. They got out before me, and we started an electrical contracting company, which was quite successful. And that was sort of my journey into being a business owner and becoming an entrepreneur. So over the years since 2002, which is when I got out of the army, I've had several different businesses. Some have worked incredibly well, and some have failed spectacularly. And in between, I've had jobs and bits and pieces to pay bills and pay rent and put food on the table and that sort of thing. But I've always had a burning desire to have my own business and to serve others, to help others. I'm less motivated these days by money. Once upon a time, it was all about, how fat can you stack those $50 bills? I just want to build fat stacks of cash. And that's a good thing. It's a good motivation to have at the right time in your life. But, I've discovered that service is something that I really enjoy. I love to help people to achieve their goals and to really deliver on what I say that I can do. And that's a driver for me on a daily basis. And after I got out of the army, had the electrical contracting company, one of the things that I needed to do there was to build a website. And if you cast your mind back all the way back to 2002, it was all the days before
.com boom and boom and bust. That was
the boom. That's exactly what it was, right? And I remember that really vividly when that all happened. And way back when, you needed some sort of ninja black art skill to build a website.
You did, exactly.
A fortune to do, and we just couldn't afford it at the time. And
because it'd be like $100,000 or something stupid, wouldn't it? So the pricing was nuts. Yeah,
the quote was $50,000, and it was like home about contact. Like, what the hell? No.
A 3-pager. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, And it's funny how much it's evolved. We laugh about it now, but back then we just couldn't afford that, and that was sort of my journey into websites and understanding that and learning about coding and all those sorts of things. And over a period of time, there's a couple of years, people asked me, how did you do that? Where did you get that from? And I was like, I did it. Oh, can you help me? And I sort of helped people a little bit here and there. And I learned that. And I thought, next time somebody asks me, I'll say, yeah, I can help you, but you're going to have to pay. And they were, I'll pay. How much is it? And I made a couple of $1,000.
But you said 49,000 then.
Well, I should have, right? I'm too cheap. I'm way too cheap. And
are you an engineer though by background? I mean, when you did the military service, was there a particular discipline you went through, or did you, because I know obviously some people from the military do quite a lot of extensive engineering, or have you just kind of fallen into that kind of piece?
No, I was a door kicker. So
a door kicker.
Yeah, I was a paratrooper. So really, I was at the sharp end of the spear as the blunt instrument of combat, really. Right, okay. And you get very good at what you do. It's like being a professional athlete is the way I describe it.
Yeah.
You have to have an extreme level of fitness, and you have to have your skill sets dialed all the way in, and you constantly train, and you're constantly going on exercises, constantly doing those things.
Like
and there's
peak performance. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no real skills involved in it other than strategies and tactics. And it's very, very nuanced, if you like. So I never got any formal qualifications from university or anything like that to build or design or anything like that.
So you've learned yourself all these kind of business skills. You've learned that since actually which you came out of the military.
Yeah.
So go on.
I was going to say I wouldn't say that I learnt them. The way I would describe it is I failed a lot, and I made a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
And I recognize that those mistakes were real-time learning experiences. And in the military, because I grew up in the military, right, since I was 17, you learn to make mistakes and then put your hand up for help when you need help. And you don't get kind of berated for making mistakes. They teach you to learn that as a learning opportunity. So if you make an error or a mistake, that's all right. Just don't do it again. This is how you resolve that. Next time when you're going to get to that point, think about it this way. And I really took that way of thinking and that mindset into my entrepreneurial career. And, I made a hell of a lot of mistakes, mate. I lost a lot of money in business, gave a lot of money to the wrong people many times. And, you think you wouldn't do that more than one time or two times or maybe 5 times, but I made the same mistakes many times over, not realizing that it's kind of in my head a little bit as well, giving people too much credit or thinking that, hey, it's not once bitten, twice shy. You've just got to put the mistakes that you've made and the bad things behind you and move on and give things a go and have a go at things. And that's sort of how I've lived my life as well. And it's worked well for me.
But when we met, you're a very positive kind of guy. And I presume that helps from the military side because you and then I suppose it's. I mean, we've all learned. It's about that thing about getting the right business partners, getting the right things together. It sounds like that when you had your, as I call it, the peaks and valleys. Yeah. So you have things where you're going really well, you're going in the right direction, you're feeling like you're realizing the potential of what you're doing as a business. When you have that kind of that valley, have you actually worked out why you had that valley? Was it kind of lack of knowledge, or lack of foresight, or just really mindset issues, or a combination of all? Have you worked out a pattern? Because you said it kind of happened a few times over and over again, or over a period of time. Any thoughts on that?
It's a really important question, right? Because it allows you to reflect on what's happened to you. Maybe I can tell you a little bit of a story that sort of lets me reflect on that, which is kind of funny and it's funny now I look back at it. It's never funny at the time, right? But
yeah, exactly.
With the benefit of hindsight, you can always giggle about these things. So when we had the electrical contracting company, I'm more of a hands-on people type person.
Yeah.
So my role, there was 3 of us. My role was like as an ops guy, and I would run the team. My mate Paul, he was good with numbers. He was good in the office. He was really patient with clients. And so he worked the office, and Shane and me, the other fellow that was in it, we worked the people. And we had about
You're out
30
in the field, basically. You're out in the field, basically.
yeah, we had about 30 people that worked for us. And I was kind of like, the way you describe it, I was the manager and Shane was like the supervisor.
Okay.
And then we had a bunch of other people that worked for us, and we just went and did the jobs, and it worked incredibly well. We had a good comment because we were in the army together, right? So we could give each other orders.
So you just knew how to work together, yeah? Just like clicked.
And we knew each other really well, as helped. And then just with the people as well, they saw how well we worked from a leadership perspective. So it sort of rubbed off on them, and we just had.
You were like a platoon, yeah.
That's exactly the way to describe it. And it was the same number of people as well, right? It's 30 people.
Yeah.
I remember one day, Paul, he rang me up and he goes, "Rob, you have to come to the office." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm way too busy. I'm too far away." He's like, "Nah, man, down tools, give it to Shano and come in." And I came in and I said, "What's wrong, man? Why can't you just tell me on the phone? What do you make me drive all the way to bloody North Sydney, And he says to me, there's a $15,000 wages bill tomorrow. And I was like, "Yeah. It's the same as like every week." So, and he goes, "There's only $9 in the bank account." And I said, "Well, why did you let it get all the way to like now?" And I'm like looking at my watch. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, "What are you doing, man? Why didn't you tell me that yesterday or the day before?" And he said, "Oh, well, I thought the money was going to come in." I said, "Well, why am I here? What do you want me to do?" And he said, "I need you to go and collect. Here are all so he gave me like a bunch of like invoices.
Like the debts, all the debts."
Yeah. And he's like, "They're all the outstanding ones. Go and collect on them. And then go to those places and stand there. Don't leave until they write you a check or they do a bank transfer for you. Or they give you some cash." And some of them gave me cash. Some of them did it. And I went away, and a couple of hours later, I collected on like 20 grand or something like that, put it all in the bank, pocketed $50 for myself and went back to work. And he asked me where that $50 was. I never forget it.
Oh, he's a good account. He's good at the numbers. He's good at the numbers. Don't miss the trick.
Not good on collecting, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's obviously like, "I'll do it next week. I'll do it next month." Yeah.
You can imagine like it's a stressful time, right? It's not stressful because I have to go and collect the money and ask for the money or whatever. It's stressful because if I don't do that, the people that work for us are relying on that income.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
You can't say to somebody, "Payday's on Thursday," and then suddenly, "Oh, sorry, man, I'm going to pay you on Friday." That's not how the world is supposed to work. I know that's how business works. I get it. But, that's not how I want to run it out.
But what was the lesson that you learned out of that, though? What was it?
Well, that's what I was going to share, right? Is you got to get on the front foot, and you need to be on the front foot in business, and don't get caught up. And the mistake that we made early on, the 3 of us, because the 3 of us had never had a business. We'd been in the army our whole careers. And the thing that we learned early on was to stop what you're doing and not get drawn into the minutiae of day-to-day activities. And, the way Jocko would describe it is, instead of looking down and in, you got to look up and out. And that's what we were not doing. And you got to keep one eye on the weekly goal, another eye on the monthly goal, and then you've got to have an overall view on the quarterly goal. and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is probably not so important. And maybe you could farm that out to somebody else within the organization, or, to a digital version of a VA or something like that. Even though back in the day, we didn't really have that, but we had people in the office we could have, farmed a lot of that work out to. But, the lesson was to get on the front foot, and that never happened again. And that's because I think partly because, not because Paul was on the front foot, but because Paul was embarrassed that he let it get away.
Right.
And it was like, it's all right, dude. It's not a big deal.
I've got it covered. Yeah,
we got it covered.
But he also raised the question there's a few things I was thinking when you were talking about that. I just felt, thanks for sharing that story, by the way. It's a really good story because it's a bit like, actually, when you just shared something about Mr. Willink, yeah. I was Jocko, your BFF. So
picture of him behind me.
Yeah, no. I think he might have been on your show recently. I think, is that right?
I wish, not quite. I asked him when he came to Australia, but apparently he was too busy for me. So
never say never. Never say never.
Never know. Yeah.
But the video, the good video, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose a cheeky question is, when you found out there's only $9 in the bank account, did you go, good? Yeah. That's an opportunity.
No, that is definitely.
The video where he's like, or that video on YouTube, which is classic. Where you just broken your leg. Good. Yeah. you just lost your job. Good. Yeah. Your house just burned down.
Yeah.
Good.
It comes back to that growth mindset or a fixed mindset. Which one do you have? Are you willing to see the positive in things and take the lessons learned and move on? Or are you, you're going to sit there and cry in the corner and be a little sook about it and wait for somebody else to solve it? And the reality was that, Paul was embarrassed as hell about it. And I didn't want my friend to feel like that. And I was in a position to help. And, my reaction is, well, why am I here? What can I do? And he had a plan. And it's like, okay, well, all right, I'll go and execute on the plan.
Because at least he'd done the work to say we need to get back on track. We need this, and I need help from you. I need support from you to do that. And you're the man. You're the man to go and get the money. Knock on the door.
I was bigger than both of them. That's what it is.
You're like a pussycat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
As one of my friends said, saber-toothed pussycat. But I think it also raises that question about, when you're running a business or when you start to run a business, actually that thing, which I suppose links to what you do, this go all in, yeah? This kind of ownership thing is that actually, when you are a solopreneur, as you're trying to build up a business or trying to help businesses, it's the detail and the strategy. It's a bit like tactical and strategy, tactics and strategy. You've got to keep doing that loop, haven't you? You can't,
absolutely.
It's not as though you can rely on lots and lots of people, because the book stops at certain people in the organization. And
well, it's what you're really talking about is motivation and what do you do to get started? And motivation is what you use to get started. But the problem with motivation is it's the start that stops most people. So what you got to do is you've got to get started. So start right now with what you've got, where you are, and believe it or not, once you begin, the motivation will appear. The hardest part about going jogging is putting your shoes on. The hardest part about getting in the water and going swimming in the middle of winter is actually putting your swimmers on and walking down to the beach. Going in the water is actually not that bad. It's not as cold as you think it's going to be. It's cold, yeah, but it's not that bad. You can live with it and get a good workout, and it feels good when you get out of the water, So
as long as you do the Wim Hof breathing,
don't worry about it. Just swim fast and warm up. Go straight past that.
As the icicles are forming and the ice forms around you. Now, the last couple of years, I've actually, you probably don't know this actually, that actually I've jumped into in Hyde Park in London. Mm-hmm. There is a lake called the Serpentine, yeah, which is where they have the swimming club. And back in February 2018, a couple of years ago, I jumped in with 10 other people. And we did the underwater for 3 minutes with Wim Hof breathing, with Bruno Ballon and a few other people that are Andy, etc. And it was well, I don't know, at the time when we came out, actually, then you realize how cold it was, because there's actually ice on the side of the lake, the side of the where we jumped in. And then actually, it shows how much of a crazy person I am these days. and will continue to be. I actually last October I went in again. So me and Bruno Ballon, we went to jumped in again, and then there was these school children walking past. There's 30 school children going, teacher, there's 2 men that are naked in the Serpentine. What's going on? And I said, it's okay. I emailed them. It's okay. We're all right.
We're allowed to be here. It's all good.
We're allowed to. We won't get arrested. Don't ring for the police. So actually, I'm overdue actually because it's now 2020. Yeah, and now obviously we're now in. Yeah, we got it. You know, pandemic. Get in that lake. Jump in that lake, no matter how cold it is. Sorry.
My missus has rheumatoid arthritis, and I don't know if you've ever known anyone with that, but it's a fairly debilitating inflammatory disease. And the medicine that they give to you to control that lowers your immunity, and she's asthmatic as well. So if you lower her immunity and she gets a cold, it really like wears her down. And she nearly died a couple of times as a result of it.
Dear.
And when she first got sick, I said to her, there's one of 2 things that are going to happen. You're either going to die from a cold like an AIDS victim, which is just ridiculous, or you're going to have to find an alternative. And we looked at a whole bunch of alternative therapies, and we found that's when I discovered Wim Hof and all of that and how it fixes inflammation. And lucky enough, it was winter time, and lucky enough, we live 100 meters from the water. And so, yeah, I'm well versed in that cold water. And we did cold water therapy with her twice a day for about half an hour to 40 minutes every day to begin with. And you do it at like 6 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night. And you'd get out and we'd walk back up here and you'd be like blue and shaking, like freezing, no towels allowed, right?
Is that like an ice bath? Is that like an ice? It's like you jump in a bath and it's just like ice cubes, or
worse than that, because swimming in the ocean, right? The ocean's probably 13 degrees, which doesn't sound cold, but it's cold for 20 or 30 minutes when you're in there. And then when you get out, it's only about 3 or 4 degrees, and the wind chill makes it feel like -2 or 3. And walking a couple of 100 meters like that when you're wet, you're like, the steps as you get closer you think they become faster, but they're like slower. Like,
as they zoom up to you. So you can't wear a wetsuit then? You can't wear a wetsuit?
No wetsuits, man. Not for rheumatoid arthritis. The whole point is to get cold and to do that.
Oh,
and
you basically to shock the body, basically. That's what it's doing, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And after many months of doing it, she kind of weaned herself off all of her asthma meds. So she's no longer on asthma medication at all, and she'd been on that her entire life. And she's weaned herself off almost all of the RA drugs as well, and she has no symptoms. And when she has a blood test, there's no markers in her blood either. Amazing. Even though she still has the disease. Yeah, all from cold water therapy.
That's fantastic. Well, that's inspired me even more to jump more in the lake as well. Maybe we could do it in the future. When we were together in Australia, I'm going to jump in the ice bath with you. Because Sylvan, who was one of the guys from Amsterdam, he was in South Africa before he went on this trip. And literally, he sent a video on Facebook of him in an ice bath. Yeah, going, "Hey guys, look at me!" It's like,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly. Is that a daily thing, or just like twice daily, or once a month? No, it's very you feel so alive when you come out when you've done that. It's just amazing. It's and people just looking quizzically as all your pile of clothes are on the side of the lake, going,
Absolutely.
Is this guy homeless? Is he homeless, or is he actually sleeping in the bushes and jumping in the lake every day? So one of the things, I suppose, the other thing. So thanks for sharing the story about the kind of your experiences about your growth, and I suppose it's this thing about what I have a lot of respect for is people who've been through the military. I have not been through the military myself, but I know a lot of military people. I was actually on a call with an ex-Green Beret actually in the US last 2 weeks ago. He's an amazing guy, and he spent 19 years in the Green Berets, and I said, how many hours of sleep? He said, I only have 4 hours sleep every day. Yeah. And then he says he has to take these tablets to get 8 hours sleep once a week. And he said, he's just like on it. He's like Mr. It's like, so it's like the very, very impressive. I'm also working with a tech company at the moment who I'm a board advisor to. And the CEO is actually, he spent two tours in Iraq. So he was a captain. And his platoon was called Crazy Horse. And he is a pretty crazy horse. It's quite interesting, but understanding the mindset, the way to lead, the approach to leadership, the approach to how they build teams, You know, this because I spent some time in a retailer called Tesco, which you've probably heard of. Yeah.
Yep.
There's actually quite a lot of my old colleagues. One of my colleagues actually he now works for Coles. He just rejoined Coles from Amazon. Just got moved back down to Australia. So in retailers, it's very interesting. There's quite a lot of ex-military people in retailers, because if you think about it, it's this kind of command center and then lots of stores.
Yep.
So, you know, working with people from the ex-British Army and stuff like that, and obviously in different countries, it's fascinating kind of thing. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, I've taken away some incredible lessons from the military. You know, as a young guy, you when you grow up in a place like that, I was 17 when I joined, right? So barely even out of my parents' place when I picked up and left. And now I'm a parent. I kind of look at that and think that must have been hard on my mum and dad.
Yeah.
Because it'd be hard on me if my kids went and did something like that. But I went off on my own. Like, off I went to go and live in the world and do that. And it was a great experience, like traveling the world with your mates, having a pocket full of money, somewhere to live, having incredible experiences that you couldn't get anywhere else. You couldn't buy, money can't buy type experiences.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of bad stuff that happens too, but you know, the experiences are what makes you. And a lot of people go and do the same sorts of things, but you don't have to be in the military. You know, I know plenty of young people here in Australia that go to Europe and live in Europe for the next 10 years of their life after they finish uni or after they finish high school. And, you know, that's a rite of passage as well. And I think joining the military is a version of a rite of passage for younger people. Some people do it, some people don't, you know, and there's plenty of people that did it in the military like me that would look at other folks. Like my missus is an example. Once she finished her apprenticeship as a chef, she was straight to Europe. And she lived in the UK there. And yeah, she was in the UK for a long time. She traveled all through Europe. She lived in New Zealand. It was a bunch of different places. And, you know, her version of it is the same.
You Aussies get everywhere. I mean, you know, you've even got dedicated pubs in London to you guys. You know, it's like if you go there, you've got to get your Aussie passport out. Otherwise you don't get in. What's going on? I'm going, look, I've got a British passport. And you go, no, sorry, Aussie only.
Sorry, mate.
It's like, that's in Covent Garden. What's going on?
Too funny.
Walkabout. It's walkabout, I think, isn't it? Walkabout pubs. Yeah, one of the things also I was going to ask you about was obviously with G&T, right? So tea. So it's not tonic, you know, in gin tonic, but it's about, I suppose, tech. So when I started kind of in and around the tech industry a few decades ago, and I suppose the question for me is that what I've noticed is now tech is, you know, it's quite more impacting on people's lives. Yeah. You know, some people, if they lose their latest Samsung or their iPhone, they kind of feel like their arm's been chopped off. So I've spent a couple of decades in the mobile industry, which will never catch on. It's still growing, even though people have like 2 or 3 phones each, you know. And obviously, you know, when I was going into the software industry and IT technology industry, people go, what are you doing that for? Yeah, you know, you're a bit of a weirdo. But now it's like seems to be cool. Yeah. So in this whole thing now, it's now being rebranded. It's called digital. Yeah, everybody's digital, and that's like, oh, isn't that IT? Isn't that technology? Yeah. But as you know, we're on this session today. You know, who could foresee that we would be on a session of live video stream that we're going to put on YouTube and all the social platforms, and, you know, put on all these audio platforms, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I mean, that's the thing where it's helping people. Yeah. So, I mean, on the tech side, I know you mentioned about the businesses that you've had. I mean, you're now running this business. I know it's just not the only business you're running, but you've got a few businesses you're running. But this Go All In business, and you mentioned about digital marketing. How did you get involved in that? Did you kind of just fall into it, or did you just see the business opportunity and then build a team around you? How did that come about?
Well, you know, it kind of stemmed from way back in the electrical contracting company days where, you know, I learned how to build that site. I learned how to help other people. And then in 2007, this thing came out. It was a really strange thing at the time. You probably never heard of something like this at the time. There was this guy, he was named Steve Jobs, and he brought this thing out called the iPhone. And I jumped on that bandwagon, and I built a bunch of apps way back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. What with the original iPhone? The original iPhone store.
Yeah. You know, the App Store. You didn't know that you wanted to swipe your phone or look at an app or something like that. And I remember thinking, this is the future. And I had a business at the time, and I found a bunch of really clever developers to help me build apps. And if I could go back in time and do more of something, I would have gone and done more of that, because it's very lucrative.
Yeah.
And it's a throwback to the older days of the late 1990s, early 2000s, when it cost you $100,000 to build a website. It would cost you $100,000 to build an app in 2007. And these days, there's app builders that you can build an app. You can have one this afternoon if you want, up in iTunes, if you're clever enough. So it's very, very different these days. And I guess I've seen the evolution of that technology, and being close to that and working with clients, you'd often talk to clients and say, hey, do you want an app? And they'd go, actually, Rob, no, we're not really interested in that. Can you help us with our website? Or can you help us with our AdWords campaign? Because the guy or the girl we got is no good. And we're wondering if you know anything about that, because you seem to know what you're talking about. And I sort of fell into it like that. And, you get a client here, you get a client there, you feel your way through, you bridge the gap in knowledge with somebody else, and you just keep going. And it evolved. And I sort of realized before I knew it, before I realized what was happening, I suddenly had a bunch of people working for me. I had some great cash flow in the business. It was my business. I'm running it by myself.
Okay.
No business partners or any pains in the backside like that. So it's worked incredibly well for me like that. But over a period of time, I just discovered that it was boring. And the thing that was boring to me was actually digital marketing, because there's only so much of that you can learn or know or discover. The thing that excited me was the people. And
right.
I love to help people. I love to engage with people. I love to help them bring their campaigns to life, but I don't really like clicking on a mouse or typing on a keyboard to actually make that happen. I would rather get somebody else that's an expert at that to make it happen, which is what I do. And that's, been the key to my success over the years, is being able to sell products and services, to be able to have that conversation and genuinely understand the needs of a client, but then also be able to translate that to the person that's executing and delivering on my behalf. And both of the combination of those things has worked incredibly well. And, I've seen the evolution of technology like that since HTML websites all the way to what they are today. And that has been incredible. And I could never have fathomed it. I was lucky enough to be exposed in the military to a bit of technology change in there. And I can kind of share with you, if you've ever seen the movie Hunt for Red October.
Oh yeah,
might remember,
Sean Connery.
You might remember Sean Connery and that movie. That's the Royal Australian Navy that I was in, where they're on a guided missile frigate, looking at a radar scope sweeping around.
Yeah. The green. With the headphones on.
Yeah, it's like not 1960s stuff. It's really 1970s and 80s technology that I used to play with. And I can remember traveling around the world and, working with different navies, cross-decking onto American ships a couple of times, in British ships and some Asian countries and stuff as well. But particularly on the American warships, on the Aegis class warships, when you would go on there, they have a Spy 1 radar, which is a phased array radar, which doesn't sweep around like people imagine a radar spinning around like that. The Spy 1 is a phased array radar, which means it's on all the time. And so you just look at the screen, there's nothing to see, and there's nothing for you to track. The computers track everything.
Okay.
And I remember the first time that I saw this technology and the operations rooms that they had. There's the two big screens in the guts of a Ticonderoga guided missile cruiser, and you go in there and you're like, hey man, what are the range rings there? And they're the range rings for the Tomahawk missiles. And it's like this big giant 1,000-kilometer range that you can reach out and touch somebody with. And just the technology that
but it's just like a level. It's just like a level up, though. I mean, I suppose that's akin to how much they invest in defense and military in different countries. I mean, it's just like the US is like, what is it? Something like what they spend on defense is like the next 50 countries, something like that. It's something ridiculous like that, isn't it?
Yeah, they outspend everybody like by 100 to 1, something like that. It's incredible. And just seeing the contrast between the US Navy and then the Australian Navy, and how we integrate and the interoperability of that. And the analogy is, it's like the warships that we were on were like 1960s cars, and they were driving around in Teslas, and with all the technology, all the they weren't even driving. You just get in there, press the button, tell it where to go, and it's all automated. And
So
So I've
obviously
seen
Elon was obviously he's obviously a lot older than we think. He's obviously been working on
maybe
the.
maybe there's something to that. So, and I've just seen, just being part of the military for a long time and having interest in that, particularly in the aviation side of it, I've seen incredible growth into fifth gen technology these days with Joint Strike Fighter and with F-22. There's been incredible developments in those things, and I've been lucky enough actually to be have interviewed a bunch of those people, a bunch of the test pilots and a bunch of pilots here in Australia that are JSF qualified, and just to understand the differences between fourth gen and fifth gen, and how that fifth gen warfighter works so differently to just 5 years ago. And I wonder what it will be in 5 years' time. It's really kind of scary to think what's happening, and because it's changing the way warfare is, but that kind of trickles down to all the things that consumers have as well. If you think about your mobile phone today, what will your mobile phone look like in 5 years' time? Or what will your laptop look like in 5 years or 10 years' time? It's a really interesting proposition to see where that's actually going and what's happening with it. And I don't
It'd be
really
like
know.
the one of my backgrounds actually for my Zoom is actually like the Matrix, with the kind of the trickling thing. So we'll be putting the thing in the back of the head like Neo. That would be the thing. It's just,
I think maybe that Matrix thing, they got it a bit wrong, because we're moving into quantum computing when it can be a 1 and a 0 at the same time. It's not a 1 or a 0, it's 1 and 0 at the same time. It's on and off at the same time.
yeah, we're gonna do the Morpheus thing, and it's like like,
Yes, exactly. You
well,
pick your pill.
the exactly. I was just gonna say red or blue.
Red.
So the interesting thing is it's that's interesting. So I actually the same year that the iPhone came out, the original iPhone, and some of the people that I know in my telco mafia, as I would call it, my mobile mafia, because I worked in the industry, were the guys that actually did the deal with Steve Jobs for bringing the iPhone to the UK. So they were on the same board as I was, Tesco Mobile board, when we did the joint venture with Telefonica. So I was with Steve Alder. He's a really good guy. Either the week and the month, and historical things like that. When he actually did the commercial contract with, it's like it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a negotiation. It was just like, okay, we'll get the exclusive for 2 years. Go on then, and then obviously look at how successful these products have been. But so I left actually and went to Silicon Valley actually to work for a software company in the same year. And now I find what's incredible is that the famous quote, "Software's eating the world," from Mark Andreessen. Yeah. It's like every company is supposed to be a software company. Suddenly it's kind of ingrained in this kind of, it's like the DNA. Yeah. And look at some of the companies that have been created since then. With the the Ubers of this world and all these kind of companies. I know some people have done well, some people have not done as well. Airbnb, etc., etc. I know some people are going to be recession-proof as we go into this new phase. But some of these companies that were created out of the last financial crisis didn't exist 10 years ago, and now they are extremely successful companies and new business models. So, I mean, I'm quite excited about what the next 10 years could be. So we're now in 2020. And despite all this kind of crazy time we're going through and everybody's been affected by it in some shape or form, I can see, some positive things coming out the back of it, because it kind of forces people to rethink what they actually do. I don't know if that's what you're finding with the business owners that you're talking to, is, you have to go into a massive detox. You have to go into a massive realignment of what you actually do. Where do you create value? Is that what you're finding with the people you're talking to?
Yeah, it's really, again, massively important point that should be talked about a whole lot more. I did an interview recently with the CEO of Western Sydney Airport. So there's only one airport being built here in Australia, which is Western Sydney Airport, and it's Sydney's second international airport. So major project due to kick off in the next 4 or 5 years. I can't remember exactly. But I remember in that interview asking him about how are you planning for things that you can't really even see? And how do you, and he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, all of these, everywhere I look in aviation, I see these flying cars, I turn on programs like Westworld and I see flying cars, and people getting around like that. It's all automated vehicles. But the reality is, in the year 2000, I thought it was going to be the Jetsons, but it wasn't. We were worried about the world ending with Y2K.
That's still a very good cartoon, though.
There still is. So, and his response was, we need to be adaptable. And we're planning for autonomous vehicles to be able to take people back and forth to and from the city and to be able to fly. We're planning for heliports that are not necessarily helicopters, but some sort of flying vehicle. So they've made provisions for it.
Well, like an autonomous drone with carrying people or something like that?
Correct.
Or?
Yeah, correct. And what it highlighted to me was what I see as I talk to clients about technology, because people ask me all the time, hey, Rob, you're on the leading edge of this. You're always talking to people about it. What do you think about it? What are your opinions about it? And it's really hard to say where it's going. And the way I describe what the future looks like is adaptability. Once upon a time, business was all about productivity and efficiency.
Yes.
And trimming down
the factory model. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's just such an old fashioned play. And, you're thinking that you need to reduce your workforce and get people to do multiple different roles and get them to organize their time better to be more efficient. And if we can get more productivity about somebody, that'll show up on our bottom line. But the reality is that's been proven many times since the early 2000s that adaptability is the key to success. And your ability to pivot and change on a dime and to accept new technology or reject technology that is new and hasn't worked is the key to success.
Spot on.
And when you
it's a classic Charles Darwin quote, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. There's a great book out there called Team of Teams, written by General Stanley McChrystal. And he talks deeply about adaptability, and it's how they beat Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and how the American military, when they first went to Iraq, they got their asses handed to them. And they're like, what are you talking about? They're using weapons that are 30 years old. We've got the best. We've got blah, blah. And they got their butts kicked. And they couldn't work out why. And ultimately what it came down to is the enemy were just more adaptable than what they were. They didn't have a weapon systems problem or a training problem. What they had in the end was a management problem. The management weren't adaptable enough to move fast enough in the environment, in the combat space, to actually make it work. And when you look at that lesson and you overlay that lesson into the modern world that we live in, particularly in this pandemic, I've had a couple of people ask me, well, what do you think the new normal is? Everyone talks about what's this new normal?
Yeah.
I think the new normal is collaboration, because no man or woman is an island. And at some point, everybody is going to be affected financially by this in some way, shape or form, personally or business or investment wise. And what you need to do is to put your hand up and find somebody to collaborate with that can move you in the same direction and keep you tracking towards your targets that way. And the only way to do that is to be adaptable. And the people that...
It's a thing called a network. It's like the networked economy. It's a true networked economy, isn't it?
Dead right. And that adaptability is the key. People say, but I'm agile. And we run an agile company, or we want to run a remote agile work team. That may be true, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're adaptable, because
that's the ways of working rather than actually what the value proposition is, isn't it?
Exactly. And people miss the mark with that. And I really believe as technology develops, it becomes harder and harder to predict actually what's going to happen. I joke about quantum computing and ones and zeros being on and off at the same time, but quantum computing is never going to filter down into this computer that I'm talking to you on. Quantum computing is not meant for that. It's meant for processing big calculations and doing things.
Big data. Yeah.
Supercomputers do. It's not meant for this. So what does my gaming PC and my VR headset look like in 10 years time? I don't know. And if I'm a game developer or a software designer, or I'm building something like that, what do I need to do? I can't be agile. Being agile means I can move quickly.
Being agile is default. I think exactly. You need to do. There's a number of businesses that I'm involved in. We do daily stand-ups. We actually. What did you do yesterday? What have you done? What are you doing today to change the world? And what's getting in the way? Bang, bang, bang. Next. It's literally that. That is how. I don't know if that's how you run your business, but I'm doing that with a few different CEOs and founders of companies, and it's just you get into that rhythm. It's about, and it's, you think back to the military thing. It's actually building a discipline into how you use your time and how you use your day. It's interesting you mentioned about Iraq, actually, because the CEO and founder of one of the tech companies I'm a board advisor to, called Sanity Desk, is a guy called Sam Cook, and he's going to be a future guest on this podcast. And a big shout out to Sam. And he basically was one of the commanders in Iraq, and he was the one that did the negotiations with Al Qaeda. So there's actually a video on Washington Post website about some of the stuff, and he was actually mentioned in the book. So because the thing about redefining the engagement model, like how do you, they're people, they're humans, how do you actually talk to them and work out a way forward rather than trying to use brute force all the time?
It's adaptability, right?
Correct. Which is correct. Exactly.
What it is, the role of the infantry is to seek out and close with the enemy, kill or capture them, and that's the typical model that they would go with. But if that's not working, you've got to try something new. You've got to adapt, and I think that's what the new normal is. And the people that can adapt and pivot quickly to either accept or reject technology as it succeeds or fails are the ones that are going to ultimately have longevity. That's there. I've stopped trying to predict what the future is. What will YouTube be around in 5 years? I don't know. Will Facebook be around in 10 years? Who knows? What is the next Facebook?
I run it's funny. I run a community called Agile Data London. So Agile Data London. Yeah. But we've now got online, right? So we actually had people all over the world on this webinar last night for 2 and a bit hours. I had 3 speakers, 1 from San Francisco, 2 from London. And literally one of the speakers, Alan Kelly, he talked about, and he's like written 7 books on Agile, right? He's a bit of a rock star literati, tech literati. He said that actually he predicts that Google and Facebook will be broken up.
Yeah, right.
So that's literally last night. So because he's seeing that some of these tech companies are getting they're getting to be too significant in size, and how do you manage it? Is there a you think about previously it was central control from banks and from governments. Then it become the tech titans, the 4, that Scott Galloway calls it. You've probably seen that book. Yeah, it's a really, really good book. What is there a 3rd wave or a 4th wave where, and maybe it's this thing that you talked about with the networked economy. Yeah, it goes from centralized control to distributed power, and all those kind of things, the conversations that come around that. So then power to the people, and power to the business owners.
Yeah. Down with the Chinese Communist Party at the same time. I'll throw that in there.
Ooh, it's a bit topical. No, but when I think I've worked in China. I don't know if you've ever been to China. Have you been to China?
I've been to Hong Kong before. I've never been to mainland China.
Okay, I've worked in China. I worked in Shanghai, and the work culture there is pretty amazing. I mean, they are. You talk about discipline and being on it and being urgent and important and get on with it.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, my funny story was because I worked for Tesco before, right? So we had a few stores, like a few thousand stores, like a couple of thousand stores. I was in Shanghai, and I was working with Kraft Foods, which is now Kraft Heinz, and working with this great guy who is called Andy Tosney. He was the VP of Sales for Asia Pacific, but he's from Leeds. He was a rugby player actually originally, so he's a sportsman, yeah. And he's from Yorkshire, where I'm from. He's very, very friendly, very direct, etc., etc. Great guy to be with. And one of his guys came in. I said, we're trying to look at some sales data. So he said, can you tell me? So Andrew wants to know how many sales outlets have you got with this product, right? So because they sell Oreos and they sell cheese and all these different biscuits and stuff like that. So 206,000.
Wow.
And I go, what? He said, yeah, but we've got in this other product, we've only got 198,000 stores that were selling that particular product. And I'm going, have you got the decimal place in the wrong place here? What? I mean, in the UK, Tesco's seen as like a successful business. It's got a few thousand stores, and it's just like the size of China. It's just
scale.
It's absolutely nuts. The other quick story about China is I've never been on a flight before where, when you're on a flight and you kind of like you doze off, and then you look at the clock, and then you doze off, and you go, and then you wake up and you look at the plane in front of you, like the image on the TV screen. You go, and he goes, "Where are we? Okay, we're still in China." So you then doze off again. Well, 3 hours later, okay, we're still going over China. Okay, doze off again.
Big country, huh?
4 hours. Oh, we're still going over China. I mean, it's huge, huge.
Yeah. Yeah,
So lots of opportunity, but obviously a slightly different style of how they run that organization. I mean, somebody said to me the other day that actually 1,000 years ago, they had 1 billion people in China, and it was so well organized. Yeah. So that thing about discipline, structure, everything like that, I think there is some elements of that which are, welcome and should be thought about. But it's that kind of how you get the best bits from different cultures, different organizations, and get the thing that works for you.
Yeah, look, I would agree with that. They have an incredible work ethic. There's no question about that. They're responsible here in Australia. Chinese immigration, they form an important part of our society, and they're hardworking people. They're hardworking Australians, and they're successful business owners and property developers, and they love property here in Australia as well. And all power to them, I say. Just no power to the Communist Party.
You heard it here first. So in terms of the future, I mean, what are your dreams for your businesses? I mean, you talked about go all in. But what are some of the things you've got on the horizon in 2020 and 2021?
Yeah, it's really exciting for me, actually. I feel like I've impacted a lot of people with my podcast. I've managed to reach a lot of people. I've got a solid audience, and I get great feedback, and I've got an engaged audience. So I love that, and it keeps me motivated to do that. And I freelance for a couple of other podcasts as well, doing some hosting over there, which is a lot of fun. I get to do something a bit different.
You like the MC kind of thing, guest MC? Or guest host?
No, I'm not actually the host of a couple of shows. So
okay.
They're quite good. I enjoy that. So I do
you've gone plural, basically. Is that what you're saying? You're multi-host.
I get paid to do it as well, So it's kind of like
you get paid to be a host.
Yeah, not bad, right? So
I need to talk to you about that.
I looked at what I was doing with my podcast, and I'm having a positive impact because that's the feedback that I get. People really enjoy the interviews that I do. They enjoy the message that's there, and I was trying to figure out a way to reach more people. So I've actually put together a course, which I'll be releasing in the next probably month or so, maybe a bit sooner, maybe about 3 weeks. It's called Master Your Mind and Go All In.
Okay.
Because I think intuitively...
That's catchy.
Yeah, people intuitively know how to go all in on something, right? You've done that at some point in your life, but part of the reason that you're failing as an entrepreneur, and it's not because you don't have the right funnel or the right Facebook campaign or the right video, is because you haven't got the 6 inches between your big fat floppy ears right to get the 10 things on the end of your arms to work properly in sync with what it is that you need to do. So I've got a really good program that I've spent quite a long time putting together. And it's 30 days to mastering your mind and going all in. So hopefully,
it's pretty fast. It's a pretty fast switch then. Yeah, it
is. It's meant to be fast to learn, but to implement is like something that sticks with you, and that's a way of kind of.
So it's like building habits, basically. That's what you're saying, building good habits.
Yeah, pretty much. So that for me is the immediate short-term horizon. In the next, sort of 6 weeks, really, I'll get to market with that. And I'm hoping to get a bit of scale out of that, and just work with that product and keep doing more of what I'm doing. My podcast network is growing. I've got about 4,000 or 5,000 people in the network now.
Fantastic.
There's a bunch of people that get booked on shows every day, and I've helped people launch their shows. It's a whole kind of radio personality thing that I've got going on, and really enjoying it, and a little bit jealous of Joe Rogan's $100 million Spotify contract, but maybe there's something.
You know what the next call is? Hello, is that Robert? Hello, we'd like to make you. It's actually $1 billion. It's $1 billion. Yeah, is that okay? Is that enough? I mean,
pay Joe Rogan $100 million, and their share price goes up by $2 billion. So
that's fine. I thought it was $5 billion. It was $5 billion. Yeah. I think it was multi-bill anyway. Multi-bill.
Crazy. Yeah, not a bad return on your investment. What do you reckon?
I mean, I just saw that announcement and I tweeted about it. I thought, boom, yeah. And obviously, I mean, there's a backstory to both of us there, isn't there? Because, what was the trigger? I mean, this is my understanding, and maybe we can clarify this. My understanding that Mr. Brian Rose, London Real, his trigger for doing his podcast originally, which obviously became reasonably well known,
Mm.
Was his, I think, talking to Joe Rogan, I think, on his show. Is that right? Because of the MMA linkage? Is that I
Was
think
it
that's the
Joe
back.
Rogan? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
something to do with MMA. I'm not sure if it was Joe, but it was definitely some MMA fighters
Yeah, I
that he
think it
had.
was MMA because obviously Brian did some MMA, and then I think I think he got Joe on the show, and then
Mm.
Joe talked about the Joe Rogan experience, and then
Mm.
that kind of, so you could say, we are, well, we've been, our shows have been given birth by, we're kind of two steps away from the man, from Joe Rogan.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
I'm still a trainee. I'm still a novice.
I'm still a novice too. You're always learning something. You're always learning. That's the one. That's the one really good thing I love about interviewing people is it's a very humbling experience. And sometimes I've found myself on a Friday afternoon. I don't really have like a working week, so to speak. Like I just work when I need to and
Just
have a
blurs.
rest. Yeah, I have a rest if I need to, sort of thing. And if I got to go to a meeting, well, it's like during working hours. But sometimes I find myself on a Friday after 10 interviews. I've done half a dozen interviews myself and been interviewed 3 or 4 times myself. And I will sit down and, reflect on the week and think, man, I've got to do something with my life because the people that I've been speaking to have just got these incredible stories and doing these incredible things. And they're so successful and all these wonderful things that are happening to them. But then I think, hang on a minute, what I'm doing is I'm facilitating that for them and I'm sharing their story. And that's what I'm doing with my life. And I'm enjoying doing that aspect. And it's like, I guess you get into a groove of doing something.
You get into
like
a flow.
that.
You get into a flow, don't you? Because I'm now doing at least 2 episodes a week. Yeah.
It's great.
And now I actually interviewed the CEO of the podcasting platform I'm actually hosted by, which is in podcast.co. And
Nice.
Great guy. And he was a 16-year-old guy when he was, all his mates were doing paper rounds. Yeah. He started a tech company with AOL 17 years ago.
Wow.
And then he's telling me some really interesting stories called James Mulvaney. And he just fell into it. And now he runs a internet radio business. He runs a podcasting business. And he said it's just blowing up. It's just, he's getting so many people contacting him every day.
Yeah.
And he competes with old Podbean and Buzzsprout and all those kind of guys. But the user experience is fantastic.
His platform's better than that. I like that platform. I know the exact one you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's the one I'm hosted on now. So, I was on YouTube for, a while, and then I basically switched to audio this year. And, it's, the distribution thing is just amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
All I can say, the best thing about doing podcasts is actually the credibility I get with Ben and James, my sons. They go,
yeah.
What, you've actually got a YouTube channel?
Yes,
I
do. Yeah.
And you're not. It's what you actually. I can see your dad. You're on a YouTube channel. What's going on? And I use YouTube, and you're actually got your own channel. What? And then he goes,
Not as old as you think I am. Come on.
Yeah, look at me. Look how good looking I am. No, and then you look at the and then I said the month said, oh yeah, I'm on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You're on Spotify? What? What's going on? So
I was having a running pitched battle with my daughter for a little while, who's pretty famous on TikTok. And
oh really? Is she? Oh really?
Yeah, she has like 70,000 followers, and it was probably
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Well, she was at about 40,000 followers, and she would be in the other room behind me and
doing the dance when you go like that.
Yeah, a bit of that, but then she'd go, "Hey, Dad." Yes, honey.
Oh no, have you been on TikTok?
No, I have. And she says to me, she goes, "Oh, one of my videos is blowing up again." I'm like, "Okay." I never really paid much attention to it, and I knew she was like getting some momentum, and I encourage her and help her where she needs help. But she's pretty good, right? She knows what she's doing. And then my sons came around, and they were like, "Have you seen Danielle's video?" And I'm like, "No." What did she do? No, it's nothing bad, but she's got like 1.3 million views of a video.
Oh wow!
Ooh. And then every now and then I hear it like from the bedroom, "I'm blowing up again, Dad." It's like, well, how many now? 800,000. And, she's got a couple of million views on a channel and 70,000 followers or something like that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So
the big question you see is, are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not on TikTok. No.
Oh, come on.
I looked at it. I played with it. Nah, you know why?
Why is that?
This is run by the Chinese Communist Party, so I'm going to steer clear.
No. What? So one of my other friends actually told me that same thing as well. I actually am on TikTok, right? I've got a TikTok account, right? But I have currently no videos, right? But my
Come on, let's get you one. Get your phone out now. Let's do one.
exactly. Let's do it.
Our first TikTok video together.
Yeah,
Two old guys.
We're gonna do the dance to the music as well. Get the right music, the right track. But the funny story for me was that I told my my sons that I was on TikTok, and they go, "Dad, please do not. This is just not on." Yeah.
My daughter panics. Like,
so go.
Don't please, Dad. Don't know.
They said first they said you haven't put a video on. I said no, I'm not putting any video. I said so I said, well, maybe we could do a video together. No, definitely not. And they said, what about I said, well, are you on TikTok? And then both Ben and James have got TikTok accounts. I said, what's your handle? I'm not telling you. They won't tell me. They won't tell me what the TikTok handle is, right? So I'm going to find them on TikTok. I know there's a few million people on TikTok now, but so it's just these social media platforms. I mean, I can speak to people. So I spoke to I said, okay, James. I said, I sent you a message on WhatsApp, and you didn't respond. He said, I don't use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is so last year, right? He said, unless you send it on Snapchat, I'm just not talking to you.
Yeah, it's funny how kids communicate, right?
And he's 14. He's 14. What's all that about? So I mean,
sorry, I was going to say, if I sit with my daughter and she's got a phone in her lap, like we're watching something or doing something together, her phone, like the alerts, like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, ding, 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 and they're all like, I'm like, I don't have any of those things on my phone. What's that? Like looking at that. Yeah, but for all the parents listening out there, one of the ultimate compliance threats that you can use to get your kids to do what you need them to do, because sometimes as they get a bit cheeky, as they become teenagers, it's a bit harder to get them to comply, is you confiscate their phone, and you better do what I'm telling you to do. Otherwise, I'm going to record a video and post it in your TikTok account. Compliance is like instantaneous. Daggy dad's in my TikTok video, no chance.
Yeah, but well, you see, I think that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna take that challenge. I'm gonna challenge you. It's a bit like the ice bucket challenge, something like that. I challenge you to be on a TikTok video with your daughter.
Oh my gosh, I get my butt kicked by her. How many views have you got on your video? I've only got like 2,000, honey. What have you got? Oh, like 800K. All right, whatever. Don't ask me anymore.
No, but I mean, how old are your kids though? Are they different ages? What's the range of ages you got?
My daughter is 13. She's almost 14. My other sons, one is 19, going on 20, and the other one is 17 in the last year of his school.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was talking to Jackie Taylor, one of the tech literati in London. She's a United Nations ambassador, or not ambassador. She's an advisor to the UN on technology. And she's done some analysis of like Generation Z, Generation Y, Generation Alpha. So we're
going back to the start.
So exactly. Yeah, it's run out. It's gone back to exactly. So 6 to 16-year-olds is now Generation Alpha. So and they're talking about how they deal with technology, how they do. Obviously, I don't know what generation we would be. Baby boomers, I don't know.
I'm an X.
Are you an X? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just.
You lucky man. So I suppose, so predictions. I mean, have you got any predictions for the next 5-10 years? Any thoughts around that? What you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I've got a lot of predictions in and around military technology. Not that that's really relevant to the way the world works. As far as like civilian technology and what we do on a day-to-day basis, I think your mobile phone will become more central to your life. I think your mobile phone. I think as we move forward in time, the technology becomes more integrated to what we do and less top of mind, less front of mind. Remember, once upon a time, it was a big thing to have an iPhone or even have a smartphone, for heaven's sake. And these days, if you don't have a smartphone, it's like, where on earth did you buy that phone? Where on earth did you get that burner phone? Like, what is this?
Yeah, but it's good. It's
Breaking Bad?
Yeah, it's good to have talk. I had this period of time when I went back to a Nokia 6210, I think it was. The old slim white one. And I went into meetings and they're all with iPhones and Samsung Androids, yeah? They're going, what's that? And they go, it's called a Nokia. And they go, it's a classic.
Not what?
Yeah, exactly. Nokia? Yeah. There used to be this really famous company in the mobile industry.
Who would have thought they went out like they did, huh? No one would have ever predicted that at the time.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is that the mobile phone is, but it's more of a utility. What you're saying is it's more of a kind of how you use it to help improve your life, rather
Mm.
than it being. I know people are a bit obsessed about things, but what you're saying is that it's kind of becomes central. It becomes a utility. It becomes a tool to help you. Really, I suppose is that what you're thinking, or?
And I think what that does is it dovetails back into the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things, 5G or not, don't worry about 5G or anything like that, because the Internet's going to be beamed down from the sky.
Mm.
And the bandwidth of the internet that we get beamed down from the
From
sky is what
Elon's satellites. From Elon's satellites.
exactly right. So that's what is really going to revolutionize the Internet of Things, not 5G, not some fixed hardwire cable in the ground that you've got to dig up. It's just unbelievably ridiculous to think that that is the future, and governments are investing in infrastructure like that when they're firing rockets into space to put the internet in the sky. It's just, if you accelerate that process, the bandwidth limitations that you have there go away, and then it kind of captures everything. And your phone network actually becomes redundant and almost irrelevant,
Yeah.
because I can just do VoIP and
Yeah, 'cause you're on Wi-Fi all the time. Yeah.
why do I need to be connected to a cell tower?
Mm.
I don't. The answer is that I don't, and I think that will revolutionize the Internet of Things. And that's the race. That is the current space race that we're in, is to get that in the sky and to monetize that as quickly as those companies can, which is a really good thing. And it's I think space is a big thing that we should pay a little bit more attention to, which we don't. Later this week, for the first time, 2 American astronauts will leave from America to go into space for the first time since the space shuttle was shut down. And that is the very tip of what's actually going to be happening in space.
Is that a US government thing, or is that SpaceX again, or is it what?
No, that's SpaceX.
Okay.
Happening this week. Yeah. And interesting, the fellow who flew the last space shuttle, the pilot, is one of the crew that is going. So, he's managed to stick around long enough to get another ride. Yeah. That's kind of cool, because I remember the last flight, and I remember seeing him. He was the pilot the last time, the Marine guy, test pilot. And so he's flying again later this week, which is very exciting. And, in the next year or so, we'll be back on the moon. We'll be back in low Earth orbit again, like with more people. And then from the moon, we'll step off to Mars. And, that is pretty exciting stuff, and it's pretty revolutionary stuff. And I think space is going to become more front of mind as well. I think also the speed and acceleration of aircraft engine technology is going to really revolutionize the way
travel.
Things are happening.
Yeah.
You'll quickly see that Boeing and Airbus, the airliners that you see today, are the last of their type, because the air-breathing hypersonic engines that we have can almost get you into space and get that ballistic trajectory around the world. So, I could leave this afternoon here in Sydney, and in 3 hours' time be in London sitting with you doing a podcast. That's literally as fast as it could be.
Sitting with me having a gin and tonic.
Having a G&T, baby. That's the way it should be.
So, I think a couple of points on that thing. I think all the movies that we've seen over the last couple of decades are now coming true. Yeah,
some.
Well, yeah. When I watch, there's kind of a rerun of lots of James Bond films. It's quite interesting, some of the James Bond films, but you actually see where they've actually, Moonraker and some of the other ones, where some of the things actually in some of the James Bond films actually are here today and real, and yet they were done in the 60s and 70s. It's quite amazing. Obviously, there's some movies that are, to your point, are, creating situations which, some of the kind of things around the pandemic, which you go, this is scarily accurate.
I was hoping for World War Z. And everyone just died.
Oh dear.
Hospital because I couldn't breathe. That wasn't the pandemic I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, but at least Brad Pitt was in that, so that's good.
Yeah, he survived.
Yeah, so it's but then I suppose the kind of the thing I was thinking about also was about the Terminator movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Is if you look at some of that with Skynet, and I suppose the connotation of what you were just talking about with the satellites circling the Earth, that triggered in my head about that kind of movie. I was actually at the Hard Rock Cafe in London because I'm part of a YouTube group in London, and we had this guy who came along and he did a presentation about some of his stuff on YouTube. He's a really good guy. He does like time-lapse videos. And I came out and I looked to the right, and actually there was in the white cabinet or the glass cabinet on the wall was the original outfit by Arnold Schwarzenegger with his gun, his sawn-off shotgun. and the
shotgun,
jacket and the leather jacket. And have you seen? I don't know. I've never physically been with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's quite a short guy. He looks like about 5'6", something like that. I don't know if you've seen him in real life, but the jacket just looks like, I won't say a child's jacket, but it was quite small. So I was just thinking, well, he's supposed to be this big bodybuilder, but he doesn't look as big as I thought. But maybe it's a mock-up. But it's like when you have this mind's eye vision of somebody in a movie, and then you see it in real life about how big it is. It's quite strange.
I think there's a little bit of futurism in that type of stuff as well. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Westworld.
Yeah.
Yeah, the latest series, Westworld #3, series 3. I think it's a very dystopian view of the future of what it is, but there's a little bit of nuanced truth in there. I think where they have like an AI that controls the world, and the AI says, it plans out my life for me, and that's what my life is, and I can't change it or do anything like that. And then there's the robots that facilitate everything and make that happen. I really think that we would have to go in leaps and bounds in technology to actually get to a point where you have autonomy in robots like that to make it happen for real. But I don't think it's as far away as you think either at the same time.
It's here today. I mean, so there's a lot of companies that I'm been talking to, and some people that I know in my network, and they have a role called responsible AI now. No, so literally, because it's this thing about what is the machine doing and what's the human oversight. Yeah. So you don't get into that situation that we have in certain movies. Yeah.
Don't let the genie out of the bottle. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, man. Don't let it out.
Stop rubbing that lantern. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's scary stuff.
So I mean, obviously your journey's been, I think you got a fascinating mix, because you've done with the military stuff. And by the way, there's some great photographs of you from your Navy days in your full Navy outfit. You look so fresh.
Was I ever that young? My God.
Yes, fresh and good looking. Yeah, as you are now. And the thing I was just going to say was that my experience with the US Navy, just quickly on the technology stuff, is some of the stuff I was doing with the US Navy was that when I worked with the US Navy a few years ago, they have this kind of this the way that they engage with people that are external, but then when you get to know them, they're crazy bunch. It's hilarious. It's like a comedy show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
things are rock show.
They're all they're people at the end of the day, but they're just really fun to be with and fun to do business with. But I suppose, so what I was going to say was, with the military background and with obviously being a business owner, I suppose one of the things I was just going to ask you finally was about your kind of takeaways and the journey you've been through. What would be the kind of top 3 things that you would, I suppose, advise people that were listening to this podcast that were thinking about, what are the really 3 things you should focus on to be what, to realize your potential, to be what we should be as a growth? How do you get the growth right? How do you realize what you could do in the world, and how you make an impact, I suppose? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love that question. It's asked a lot on podcasts, and it's really important to share your view of it as well. The thing for me is focus on process, not the outcome, and the outcome will happen if you get the process right. That would be the first thing that I would say is, and because there's another formula that I like to use. It's E plus R equals O. You can't really control what's going to happen in the world. You can't control what's going to happen to you. You can have some element of control, but the events that happen to you. So the event plus your response to the event. So it's not what goes wrong. It's how you handle what goes wrong, and that equals your outcome. So the event plus the response equals the outcome. And if you focus on the process of doing what you need to do to achieve your goals, your outcomes will happen a whole lot better. And I think you have to have good focus and awareness, and you need to have self-control and discipline. If I could add that in as a final one, having focus and awareness is a really important skill set in helping you to control the process that you've got going on. The ability to turn off your phone, turn off the alerts on your phone, delete your social media from your phone if you're trying to build a project or do something, and stop the distraction, because it's the distraction that will really hold you back. And what I would say is, I think these days people are real specialists at what they do. And if you're looking to build a business or a brand, you need to be a bit more of a generalist and employ specialists. It's the story.
Yeah.
It's the story of DreamWorks and the story of all of the animation movies of Toy Story and
Oh, you
the
mean
likes.
the Pixar stuff? You mean?
Pixar,
Yeah.
those ones.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, those guys weren't too bright, but they surrounded themselves with all the PhD guys, and that's how they became successful. And I really believe that is true. And you know, the other day I had an issue with a website, and I was like, I've got to set up Tag Manager on this site. I've got to get these events set up. I've got to get these audience fixed in analytics. And it was this really nuanced thing. And I know how to do every single bit of work that needed to be done. And I thought, you know what, I could just do it all myself. I'll sit here and do that. But at my fingertips, I go and I put a job in Upwork, and honestly, within 15 minutes, I had the world's best Google guy working for me. You know, he's had 15 years experience working with all this all these qualification. I'm like, dude, can you do what I need? Like, it's really simple. And literally an hour later, it's finished.
Wow.
And we're just so fortunate to live in this time and space in humanity where you can.
So you got on demand, really good skills on demand in an hour. Wow.
Yeah, and you can create anything that you ever want. And I often joke. Sometimes I joke with my friends and with my missus, and I say, if you could build anything, and you had $100,000 budget right now, what would you build? And people often say, oh, I would build this website, or I've got this invention, or I've got this thing. You'd be like, well, it wouldn't cost you $100,000, because I reckon we could do that for like $15,000, and we could find all the people in the next 2 hours in Upwork. So if you're the generalist and you generally know how to do things, and you can bring teams together, and you're good at focusing on process, and you're not worrying about actually the events of the world, then you have good outcomes and you'll be able to move forward nicely.
Fantastic. I mean, it's very interesting, because the world's getting more complex, but actually then people are specializing. And I suppose what you're saying is, if you've got the overview, the helicopter view, and you put things in place to manage things and you bring people together and you win the hearts and minds, that's kind of a key element of it. Fantastic.
And I would say that the number one thing that you need for success is the Stanley McChrystal adaptability. Adaptability is key in business. And what that does is, in times of pandemics, when your businesses that have been running for 15 years have been shut down, like mine have, you adapt, you evolve, and you pivot, and you adapt to the situation, and you don't let it get you down. You know, it sucks. You go and cry in your pillow for half an hour, then you put your big boy pants on, or your big girl pants. You come back out and you get on with it. And
you go and jump in the ocean and get
go catch a dinner. You'll feel better.
And get your budgie smugglers on.
In Australia, we say budgie smugglers.
Budgie. Is it budgie?
There you go. There you get your Aussie accent on. There you go.
Oh, you say, yeah. You can coach me. I'll be a. I know a lot of. What do you call English people that are in Australia then? Poms. Yeah. You should do like a POM accelerator or something like that. You know, how to be Australian.
Yeah, how to fit right in. Just move out to Bondi. You'll fit right in with the.
I've been there. Actually, I've been to Bondi.
Of course you have. You're British, of course. Come on.
Yeah, I've been on that ferry. Is that ferry? You know, those ferries that go around from the
to Manly.
Yeah, Manly. But yeah, I did that. Yeah. There's some interesting places. It's a fascinating place. It's an amazing place. I've been to Port Douglas. I've been on the Barrier Reef. I've done all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, Thank you very much for the time today. It's been a wonderful journey through the life of Robert Brus. And no, I'm excited about what you're doing as well. It sounds fantastic. You're doing your masterclass. You know, I know you've got a lot on, and all I can do is thank you for the time and wish you all the best in the 2020 and 2021. And let's catch up soon.
Sounds great.
So that was Robert Brus, Mr. Go All In, from Sydney, Australia. And this is Andrew Turner, the host and founder of the G&T Sessions podcast. Thank you very much, Robert.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Bye now.